to your favorite NSL related podcast. This is Outcast with the Hive, and I'm going to just break down the season, so to speak. Basically recap the season. I kind of recapped a little bit in a previous podcast, but we're going to go through basically the entire season with all the losses, the injuries, and stuff like that, and how I was looking at what to do going into the off-season draft, stuff like that. So right now, we're going to go over some of that stuff a little bit, and then I'm going to break down what the off-season plan really is. Okay, as you know, this was the most foul season I ever had. I mean, just crazy. This season was worse than my first season back in the NLL, which was the same year as Malice in the Palace. And I remember that specifically because I had Ron Artest, and so I ended up losing him for the season. I also had Jamal Tinsley, who could not stay healthy, and I had Stephon Marbury. So between Tinsley and Ron Artest just basically blowing smoke up the season, it sucked, right? Really sucked. First year, coming thinking I was going to run shit, and turned out I didn't have a clue. All right, this felt a lot like that. Very similar. You know, we got a Ja who comes into the season on a 25-game suspension. And I think that in a vacuum, a lot of people would question that trade, trading Luka for Ja Morant. And that was just kind of a weird trade. And that trade is probably the trigger for the new rule that we have, where trades have to be completed within 2 days. Just simply because that trade happened at the deadline, but it wasn't really finished until the end of until the off season. And the reality, I mean, so much could have gone wrong that anything could have happened. Like, you know, Leroy could have changed his mind, I could have changed my mind. Just a lot could have happened that could have prevented that trade from actually being executed. It's really kind of risky. The idea of the new rule where trades have to be done within 2 days makes a lot more sense. It just eliminates the margin of error. And did I have any thoughts of possibly reneging on the trade after it turned out the job was going to be suspended for 25 games? No, but it definitely sucked just trying to figure out how that whole thing was going to work. And I can give you some of my thoughts on that in a second. Okay, all right, well, essentially, the off-season hits. I know Ja's going to be out for 25 games, and so my thinking was I'll build around Ja not being there, kind of have a safety net, so to speak. So I loaded up on scoring guards. I had Terry Rozier and Malik Beasley, who was basically a sleeper guard. People literally slept on him. They didn't think that he would be worth anything, so they were going to snatch him up in free agency, basically for like little of nothing. So the thing with Terry Rozier seemed like it would be a good idea. I think he was hurt early in the season or something like that, and I made a few other moves, and we get into the season, and we're faced, we're literally, the prospect is we don't have Ja, but we don't have Ja, we don't have Rozier. So we got, what do we have? We got Van Vliet, Beasley, Draymond Green, Terry, Kristaps Porzingis, and I can't remember. I want to say at that time that it was small forward was Jay Crowder. I was Boom! I had a serious brain fart right there. Okay, so we had Jay Crowder. All right, now the reason part the Luka Ja Morant trade had a lot to do with my thinking the first couple of weeks of the season, because we had Kristaps Porzingis, and Kristaps Porzingis technically has a similar build as Victor Wembanyama, sort of distant, sort of. You guys can throw tomatoes at me later. But I was thinking that we were looking at preseason games that people were sending, and like Wembanyama was showing out. You know, I was just like, okay, well maybe I will start the season with Nurk on the bench, and I'll have Porzingis play center, and then Draymond at power forward, and then I'll just have like Crowder as the 3-and-D guy, and then Rozier and Van Vliet. But then it turns out that Rozier was out, so I had to sub in Malik Beasley and Van Vliet. Okay, so that first week, total disaster. Okay, so that just total disaster. You know, the first part of that is that I think like Kristaps Porzingis averaged like 9 points or something. I mean, he just basically he picked up the new season the same way he left off the playoffs. The playoffs, he got snuffed out. He basically was nothing in the playoffs, and I was like, this is not going to work. And we went through a little bit of an injury cycle for those first few weeks. But believe it or not, for the first 6 weeks, we had only 6 wins, all right? And I was like having a conniption. You know, I was cool, always positive, but I was having a conniption that the team was playing so bad. I just couldn't get it. The team was playing so bad, and I was trying different lineups. And granted, we had the different little injury things happening, but I was literally having a conniption fit because from my point of view, which was echoed by several other GMs after I started making deals, this team only needs Ja Morant. And even without Ja Morant, they should be winning games. But as you all know, just sometimes the stuff don't work in 2K the way we think it should logically. And I just started feeling like that maybe I needed a bigger shot creator. You know, like it's like Rozier was great. You know, he was averaging like 27 points a game once he finally came back. He was averaging 27 points a game. And when he was available, Van Vliet was a little bit more efficient. Now Van Vliet, without Ja, was averaging like 25 points a game, and he was also like top 3 or 4 in assists per game. But he was also like top 5 in turnovers. And it was just like without Ja and him being like the lead offensive option, he was just doing too much. Just too much usage and too many opportunities for, you know, bad things to happen. And the turnovers were a big part of why the team wasn't doing so well. As I started to analyze the numbers, I was seeing that the team was we just couldn't control the ball. We were like near the bottom in turnovers per game. So that was kind of like a big thing. And what I wanted a bigger shot creator, somebody could just get their own shot at any time. And it turned out that Rozier could get his own shot, but it was situational. And then he would have these runs where he would score his points and then he'd be quiet for like the rest of the game. And so with a bigger shot creator, I felt like it would be that the offense would be a little bit more fluid, and I wouldn't be so reliant on Van Vliet just playing above his head, which is what he was doing, which was kind of sucking a lot. So got into conversation with Smokey from New York that he just felt like the whole thing with Kawhi Leonard and DeRozan didn't work, and that he had interest in Kristaps Porzingis. And I was like, good, because this guy sucks, the big one, okay? He just wasn't working for me. And that was the way I was feeling at the time. I like Porzingis' game. It's just that he needed Ja. And so, because of the way that he was getting his shots and the way the team was built, he really needed to be set up better. And that was kind of how he needed to get his points. Not necessarily the way that Porzingis gets his points is he is not necessarily a pick and pop guy, but he needs to just be set up. He needs to be set up so that he can get his points. He can have big games. I mean, he once I had Rozier in the lineup, Porzingis was playing better, but I just felt like the team was too hard for them to score, especially with all the turnovers, because VanVleet was just, he was just asked to do too much in this particular engine. And so I ended up making that trade, Porzingis for DeMar and some guy, I can't remember his name, some guy got thrown in. And immediately there was a change. I mean, we didn't really win any more games because the week that DeMar got to play was the week before Ja came back. And I think that that week that was week 7 that DeMar came into the fold, and yeah, we still sucked. But DeMar averaged 30 points a game. And I think that was around Christmas, and we were just waiting for, at least I don't know what you guys were waiting for, but I was just waiting for Ja to come back. And I figured that once he got in, just the team would just be different, While I was waiting for Ja to come back, had the most bizarre thing happen. Draymond Green decided to channel his inner Ron Artest or Metta World Peace, whatever. I shouldn't say whatever, but Metta World Peace, and decided to helicopter karate chop Jusuf Nurkic in the game. And the comedy of that is that for me, it's his own teammate. It's okay, he basically chopping his own teammate in the neck. So, and then he was suspended indefinitely. So I was like. And the crazy part about it is I really loved the way Nurkic was playing. Nurkic was playing really well. And again, luckily he wasn't hurt. He didn't miss any time, but he was really bringing it on as a rebounder and screen setter. So we get Ja back, but we don't have Draymond Green. It turns out that just as we get Ja back, he gets the shoulder injury. So actually, it's the shoulder. He gets the shoulder injury, but we get him for week 8. And just dominant, just dominant. I mean, he was just we went 3-1 that week, and Ja averaged 32 points and 10 assists a game, And that lineup featured Morant, VanVleet, Bogdanovic, DeRozan, and Nurkic. And it's a 1-2 punch. Ja and DeRozan was just lethal. And just VanVleet was able to play a backseat role, we were able to put him on the point guard in defense and just kind of run up and down the court. The team put together a great week. The team averaged 125 points a game with an effective field goal efficiency of 57%. The win percentage based off of their numbers was basically 67%, with offensive efficiency of 123 and defensive efficiency of 119. Now, there wasn't a lot of distance between the offensive efficiency and the defense efficiency, but what that showed me is that, one, they could put up points, and because of the clutch play of Morant and DeRozan, they were going to win close games. So if they had a collapse on defense, then they would have an opportunity to close those games out, because really we had on most games we would have like the two best clutch players on the court, and I felt like that really mattered. And then of course because of the shoulder, we lost him, for the next 5 weeks or so, and it was back into the same thing, just trying to figure out how we can eke out some wins. And what I was hoping for is to find the formula that would get them playing 500 ball, meaning that they're winning one and losing one, winning one and losing one. I wasn't expecting them to gain any ground, but to just start to tread water. And ideally, I wanted them to do that. And it just we got to the point like in week 12. In week 12, I think we went. We won one game in week 12. It looks like. Yeah, we won one game in week 12. Still trying to figure out. DeRozan was just killing it, and it's such a versatile player. You could play him shooting guard, small forward, power forward. You could just put him anywhere, and he was just really killing it. I was just able to do a lot of different things with him, but just couldn't figure out how to get them wins without Ja. And the week that Ja came back, which was week 13, I think I had it figured out, but Ja was back, so I had to, of course, I'm going to go ahead and put him in. I put him in, and the team was so good. They went 3-1. That lineup was Morant, VanVleet, Green, DeRozan at power forward, and Nurkic. So Green was playing small forward, and DeRozan playing power forward. The team, of course, went 3-1. We averaged 126 points a game, which is, one more point than previously with Ja Morant. But we also were a little bit better defensive-wise. Offensive efficiency, we were down a little, 122. Defensively, we were 118. But in the expected win percentage was roughly about the same. It was about 60% or so. So I was seeing that this team, and a different set of circumstances, it's a monster. It's a total monster. I was just like, okay, this is freaking awesome. Because we didn't really know when he was going to play. It was a shock to a couple of GMs reached out to me that got totally smashed, and they were like, okay, well, I didn't even know Ja was playing. I would have picked a different lineup. And to be honest with you, I was like, it wouldn't have made a difference. Okay, yeah, sure. You would pick up that lineup, it wouldn't have made a difference, because this thing here with Ja and DeRozan, this is a win factory. So I wasn't really sure if I was going to get him for the following week. I did get him for week 14. I didn't have Nurkic though, so I ended up having to sub in Oscar Tshiebwe because my backup center, which is Harry Giles, got waived. And so I had Oscar Tshiebwe in with a two-way player, and we only went 2-2 that week. And that week we also played against Utah Jazz, and we just got totally smashed. And so that was just something that couldn't be avoided. But if it had been any other team, we probably would have won. I probably would have been another 3-1 week. And all in all, 12 games played, we went 8-4 with Ja Morant. And so I just felt like there was something there. We could definitely utilize that for the next season. But it did turn out that I did figure out the formula for generating some wins with this team, and we started building some momentum. So after he was out, we kept winning. We won like 4. I think we went on like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We technically won a 6-game win streak. We kept winning after that, and so that was pretty good feeling. I was like, okay, we might get a chance to make the play-in. And making a plan at this point, I'm looking at free agency. I'm looking at free agency because the record matters. So like it determines. It goes into the formula for how many points you have to bid and stuff like that. So I'm thinking that that's going to matter, not in reference to retaining like DeMar DeRozan, because at the time the talk was that the Bulls are offering him some sort of crazy contract where he can make $40 million a season or something like that. So I wasn't worried about retaining him. I was worried about the fill-in pieces, like the minimum guys that I normally am able to sweep up and stuff like that. So the record mattered. So if I can get into the play-in, then that gives me a little bit better record, and I can kind of have a little bit of relief in regards to what's going on with the free agency. But it turns out we did make the play-in, but we got bounced. And it is what it is. It was basically a lost season. A lot of optimism, because I could see that this crazy concept I had was definitely going to work. And so we went into some of the off-season, just kind of figure out how do we fill out the roster. Just crazy GM.5, just GM.5, because being over the second apron was nuts. And I was able to offset that, with activity, over the course of the off-season by sending playoff games and doing some stuff, working with the site and things like that. So I was able to offset that a little bit, but it's like the second apron thing is just, it's just, it's crazy. And I ended up having to really consider making some moves to switch up the roster a little bit. I really wanted to switch up that roster a little bit and just kind of make it a little bit more flexible, per se. And part of that was really needed to, as much as I liked Van Vliet as a two guard next to Ja Morant, I just felt like he needed to move. I needed to turn his contract into two players. Got to talking with Clem. He was going to need a point guard at the time. He was looking for somebody that could play next to Bradley Beal. Ironically, I was trying to trade for Bradley Beal during the season, but couldn't because of second apron restrictions. And so it looks like Van Vliet was going to get to play with Bradley Beal anyway. And traded Van Vliet for Jeremy Grant and Chris Boucher. And I like this trade because Grant and Boucher were part of the team that I had when I won 60 wins a couple of seasons ago. I actually won 60 wins 2 seasons. And Grant and Boucher were part of that formula. So I was like, okay, we're getting the band back together, so to speak. And I felt like now I had a little bit more flexibility because now I can move DeMar DeRozan to shooting guard. Ja's going to be the point guard, and then I got Jeremy Grant who can play small forward, and then I'll put Draymond Green at power forward, and then Nurkic will be a center. And so now the roster is a little bit more traditional, so to speak. It was still a little bit small because Draymond Green is not a traditional power forward, so it's not really traditional power forward, so to speak, in regards to size. But I had that shot creation, that athleticism between Ja Morant, Grant, and DeMar DeRozan, athleticism and shot creation, and I felt like that's a good formula to go with. And I can always just kind of dispatch Green to be the defender, the primary defender on the opposing team's best player, and things of that nature. So I felt pretty good about that. And then started looking at the draft. I had the pick that didn't belong to me. I think the pick was New Orleans. And I had some second round picks that were future second round picks. And I'm still thinking about the whole roster situation. I'm thinking about, okay, how is this going to work? How am I going to fill out this roster? I still have to re-sign DeMar DeRozan, and I need to figure out how to fill out this roster because I'm going to be a second apron team again, assuming that DeMar, because at the time the assumption was still that he was going to re-sign with the Bulls for some ridiculous amount of money. And so my idea was that I had to fill out the roster, and I started thinking about minimum guys. I started thinking about potential second rounders that might be in position to get guaranteed deals. So one of those guys ended up being like Bronny James. I started looking at Bronny James because I knew that he had a guaranteed deal. And I got to talking with Ben about Draymond. He's reached out to me a number of times about Draymond. He's had Draymond before. I think I got Draymond from him previously. He talked to me about Draymond, and we he would come to me and he would say, "What about this?" And I would say yay, nay, or I would say nay, and this is why. And he was just working the phones. And so I think I ended up asking him about Miles Turner. And the idea behind Miles Turner was that if he was going to want Draymond, I needed another defender. Miles Turner is not the same kind of defender that Draymond Green is, but that was my thinking. That I needed to find a way to bring more defense back. And then Norman Powell became part of the discussion, and we were having separate trade talks about various second rounders and stuff like that, and just there's a lot of stuff going on. To be quite honest with you, I mean, I could look it up, but I can't remember exactly what happened first, chicken or the egg. But I think everything happened after the draft. Now I think about it, we agreed on like the different parts as far as Miles Turner, Norman Powell coming in, Draymond Green going out and stuff, and it just like it was a lot of things. And I think I'm sending out Tim Hardaway, and it was a very complicated deal, involved multiple teams. But when it does settle, I had multiple second round players that were locked in on first round deals, and then I signed up with Bronny James, Antonio Reeves, and Pele Larson as players that are having the guaranteed deals. So now I got 3 players to fill roster spots with. I also had I got Deron Holmes II, who was like a stash player at this rate. He's a stash player because he's got like a torn ACL or something like that, so he's not playing anytime soon. But he's a big man, and big men are premium in this league. So I was like, okay, well I can stash this guy because now I got Miles Turner and Yusuf Nurkic. So he don't gotta play right now. He could play a year from now, which is fine for me. Which is kind of really the logic that I had, and I was just like, okay, we can do this. And now I felt like the team had a little bit more depth. I was able to basically fill out the roster because now you're looking at Ja Morant, Norman Powell, DeMar DeRozan. Am I drawing a blank? You got Norman Powell, you got Grant, you got Morant, Norman Powell, DeRozan, Grant, and Miles Turner. And then Yusuf is off the bench. I'm like, okay. I said, okay, this is the starting lineup is set. The starting lineup is set. Now we're just filling out the bench. And as crazy as it sounds, I got Nurkic as a bench player now. And really, it's really kind of situational because he's a premier rebounder versus Turner. There's situations where I might want to have him in versus Turner because he's just such a strong rebounder in the game. But now I'm looking at this and I got Bronny James, who We don't know what he's going to be, right? But my thinking was that he was going to get 2K glitched, all right? So I'm thinking, okay, well, he's reasonably athletic. His dad is LeBron James. They're probably going to glitch him out a little bit, even if his overall isn't all that great. And if his overall is great, it won't be higher than 72 or 73 or something like that. And Pele Larson and Antonio Reeves, I figured that they were good. They were semi-athletic players that figured might get some good ratings in those areas. And that was the reason why I kind of picked them. I said, okay, so now I got 3 guys on the bench. I don't know if they're going to be rotation players, but I got 3 guys on the bench that I might be able to use. Okay, so now what I need is I just need like a backup small forward and like maybe another point guard or something. You know, I'm thinking, I was like, okay, I'm not in a bad situation because I got Boucher's gonna be backup power forward. I got Nurkic backup center. All I need now is, you know, to figure this thing out. So I made another trade. The trade is not official yet, but this trade is sending Jeremy Grant to the Suns, and then I'm bringing back TJ McConnell. I'm sending Jeremy Grant, Oscar Tshiebwe, and Deron Holmes to the Suns, and then I'm bringing back TJ McConnell, Jock Landale, and should have wrote that one down. I'm bringing back Jock Landale, TJ McConnell, and another key piece. Brandon Clark. Bringing back Brandon Clark. So now, and I think what happened is this. We already had the TJ McConnell deal in place for Boucher, because I'm thinking I need a legit backup point guard for Ja Morant because I expect him to play 65 games. So Lattice puts in his trade block something about if you want like an athletic forward, come get it. Okay, so I was like, oh, well, you know, I'm trying to make a more athletic team. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, any way we can make this, we do something with this and make it part of the other trade. And that's kind of what we've done. We've made, I'm going to, so essentially my lineup is looking like Ja Morant, Norman Powell. My lineup is looking like Ja Morant, Norman Powell, DeMar DeRozan, Brandon Clark, and Miles Turner. So now I got my athleticism and I got some marginal defense. And I'm liking that because I got Boucher on the bench. Now I got a surplus of centers. I got Miles Turner, Jusuf Nurkic, Jock Landale, Boucher is center eligible, and now I'm like, okay, so this is looking like it's going somewhere. And then TJ McConnell's backing up Ja Morant. And the only problem I have is I got like players that are position locked. Ja Morant, TJ McConnell are position locked at point guard. Miles Turner and Jusuf Nurkic and Jock Landale are locked at position locked at center. So, and then I got DeMar DeRozan, who's a 3-position player. Plays shooting guard, small forward, and power forward. And then Chris Boucher plays center, power forward, and small forward. So there's some flexibility there. So ideally, we're just looking at additional depth at this point. Just kind of figure out where the depth is so that I'm not relying too much on the second round guys that are on guaranteed deals, because I really don't know what Pele Larson, Antonio Reeves, and LeBron James are going to be in the game. I have the game, and I actually would have tried it out, but I can't get the game to run at the same time that I'm doing other stuff. So whenever I do something else with the game the game crashes, and it's giving me a headache trying to figure that shit out. So I'm just kind of like whatever for right now. But yeah, I think that we got a pretty good nucleus right now. I think that somewhere down the line, I'm probably going to make another trade. I mean, with all the centers that I have, somebody's going to need a center, and that's going to put me in a position to kind of get whatever the missing piece is. I haven't figured it out yet. I mean, once I sit down and start looking at the roster and thinking about what the missing piece is, I'm pretty sure the piece is defense related, but I don't know if that player is a shooting guard, a small forward, a power forward, or what. I just don't know yet. So I think that over the next few days, I will start to figure that out and kind of maybe reach out to a couple of GMs or wait till after free agency and stuff like that, because I kind of really can't do a whole lot right now. The cap hold for DeRozan just has the team not really in limbo, but in a state to where I can talk about deals, but I can't really do anything just yet. So ideally, something will come together just before free agency probably hits around that time. So that's pretty much where we are right now. About a couple weeks ago, you guys know I like to do the tickers. A couple weeks ago, I mentioned something about a new podcast called The Crossover. All right, I will be doing that. That will be a weekly thing, and The Crossover is different than The Hive. The Crossover is something you guys are going to love. All right, if you've ever watched NFL Hard Knocks, or if you're currently watching Starting Five on Netflix, that's what The Crossover is, except it's the NSL version. Okay, so the idea is I'm scripting out dialogue of all my players, just stuff that's going on behind the scenes, and I'm going to be acting this stuff out. I'm not going to be acting like a video. It's not going to be, you're not going to see me dressing up as different players and stuff like that, but it's going to be, in the beginning, it's going to be mostly audio. And then as I develop momentum with it, I may do more visuals, maybe some storyboarding or stuff. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But I wrote the first couple episodes, and I want to try and start recording that soon. I'm hoping to drop the first episode before we get into free agency. I would like to have a repository of episodes available to do this, but I'm really hyped about it. I think that this is something fresh, something new, something that's never been done before in this particular space. And I almost didn't even want to announce it because you just never know. Somebody else might be able to get it done, something similar, sooner than I can. But I'm really, really hyped about it. And the premise of the idea came from the fact that I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And a lot of those audiobooks are scripted stories. Kind of like in the old days where they didn't have TV and they would have the radio show and the actors would be, doing their lines, and you have the sound effects and, people banging pots and pans for thunder and stomping on the ground for footsteps and stuff like that. So it stemmed from that. And I was just like, that would be cool if we had something for this space that emulated that. So basically it's just going to be like my team, just all the crap that the players go through, conversations after games, during games, before games, family life, just different things that's going on. If a player gets in trouble, gets suspended or whatever, I'm going to write that into the script. It's just going to be, I think it's going to be a lot of hard work, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's also practice for me for some other stuff that I want to do in the content creation medium. So I'm really hyped to bring that to you guys, and hopefully I can get some episodes started before this, like I say, before free agency kicks off, because I want to write free agency into it. So, and it'll probably kick off, the first episodes are really about the end of the off season, and then the off season, and then leading up to that, which is where the episodes are right now. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm 10 minutes over my time. I don't even get credit for the 10 minutes as far as the points go, but it was a lot of ground to cover, and I wanted it to be complete. And I'm just, like I say, a lot of this content creation I'm using as like practice for some other stuff that I want to do. So essentially, these things will get a little bit better. I know the lighting sucks because my girlfriend is a full-time streamer on Twitch, and she has my ring lights downstairs at her workspace, and I just didn't feel like getting them right now. So thanks for listening to this to the end. If you guys got any feedback, questions about this podcast or about the overall presentation of the podcast, anything like that, feel free to hit me up. Thanks again. Peace out.